Let's talk about love. One of the things that has surprised me the most at the very beginning of the connection that formed between me and my girlfriend is that finding that person and being with that person, it completely strips you of any shells and masks and disguises that you may have put on yourself over the years. In a way, that's maybe how I knew that this was something different, something stronger, because even with people that I knew for years and years, I still found it really hard to relax and open up, and I was still acting in a way. With Bella, I realized that after just a couple of weeks, there was simply no need for any pretending. There was a connection there that stood on the purest and deepest truths about who we are as people, which I think if you are a person who is looking for love, I think that's what you're looking for. I think love cannot be built on one or both of the people trying to be something that they are not, just because they think that that's who the other person wants them to be. I think that will never work. If I could offer you one piece of advice that I think is extremely important once you are actually in a relationship with another person, it would be to try your absolute best to not suppress your feelings and emotions in front of the other person and encourage the same approach on their side as well. I think most of the difficult moments in my own relationship with my girlfriend came from one of us initially trying to hide or to downplay the way we felt about a certain situation, or just the way one of us felt in general at a specific moment in time. Essentially, in order for a healthy relationship to be possible, you need to become extremely good at solving problems together. I used to think that a happy relationship means a relationship that doesn't have problems, but a relationship that doesn't have problems isn't a relationship, it's an act. It is pretty much impossible to spend most of your time with somebody without sometimes getting on each other's nerves, without sometimes hurting one another, without disagreeing and without drifting apart at times. All of those things will happen, and all of those things are normal, healthy and okay, but you need to address them together. And that's not always possible right away. Sometimes one of you or both of you will need a minute, an hour, a day or a week to process what has happened, to understand what triggered it, to come to terms with the way you feel about it before you can sit down and go over it together. And that's also okay. What isn't okay is locking away that emotion in some remote part of your soul and let it there to rot. It will become solid and hard to remove, and the more you chuck in there, the bigger mess you're creating, and the more difficult and perhaps impossible it will be to one day take a shovel and get rid of all of it. I'm not afraid of more problems happening between me and my girlfriend. So far there haven't been any major problems, I think, and of course I don't want major problems to happen between us. But I suppose the real issue would be if there came a time when one of us no longer cares about solving or at least attempting to solve those problems. I hope and believe that that moment won't come, and if it really doesn't, I think we have what it takes to keep going for as long as our bodies allow us to, which of course that's the goal and the objective and the dream. Moving on. Something that I find frustrating is the phrase that I often hear people say when talking about the fading away of love, which is the spark is gone. Not that I don't accept that something like that is possible, but I just think it's something that people use as an excuse once they have already experienced everything physically that their partner can give them, once they understand them and get used to them, once they're no longer nervous in front of them, and once things start becoming about something deeper than perhaps they initially were. There does come a point in which it no longer feels like falling in love, and I think that's where a lot of couples just give up. It's true that the feeling, the excitement and the nervousness of falling in love with another person and hoping that they feel the same way, experiencing all the things that come along with romance with them for the first time, it is indeed perhaps one of the most beautiful things that you can experience in life. And that feeling is occasionally revived even later in the relationship, but ultimately you can't ignore the fact that you now know that person and have become used to being around that person. You have seen them at their best as well as at their worst, and your relationship is now mostly stripped of any shyness. All of those things do become a reality sooner or later, but you might be making a terrible mistake by calling it the spark is gone. Of course, it is entirely in the realm of possibility that you might no longer be intrigued by your partner or attracted to them, but I think that a lot of people just want to experience that feeling of falling in love again. They're perhaps scared of not being intimate with another person ever again, so they escape that situation. Yeah, I'm 21, so what do I know? But you cannot tell me that this doesn't happen frequently, and in all my naivety and inexperience, I think that it is truly a foolish thing to do. I'm of course not sitting here trying to tell you that it is just in general morally unacceptable for a relationship to end. On the contrary, I believe that we all deserve to find that person that we are truly meant to be with. And if it starts to feel like that person we are with currently isn't going to be that person for us, then absolutely, the right thing for us is to leave that relationship. But I just feel like people can sometimes be too quick to throw away what they have built with someone. What I have also learned is that a relationship, or I will use the word love, love is in its purest and most honest form a selfless emotion. And in a relationship you cannot lose track of the fact that it is inherently built on this selfless feeling of simply loving another person. Because in order for a relationship to flourish, it requires a near constant attention and care, and pretty much a limitless amount of work and effort. And you just cannot do that on the basis of, oh, I did this one thing, now let's see what I get in return, let's see what's the reward. When you enter a relationship, you essentially agree to do the best you can for one another, but the best you can do will be different for both of you. It will change based on your current situation and state of mind, and rarely ever will it be 50-50. You have to be ready to give more than you receive, because that will be the reality at times. But of course that only works for as long as you have a complete trust that once it's you who needs to receive, the other one will give as much as they can. And if I may, for this next section, only talk to a certain section of the audience, I'd like to address those of you who are in a relationship with a woman or are interested in being in a relationship with a woman. Do not be ignorant of what is happening inside a woman's body throughout the month. I feel like some men are very quick to label women as irrational and hard to understand or predict, which is of course laughable for multiple reasons, but also if you tried a little bit harder to understand the different stages of what a woman has to go through every single month again and again and again, then number one, you will be able to support them better during those times, which ultimately is your job as somebody's partner. And number two, you will not have to wonder sometimes why they are suddenly a bit more quiet than usually, or why a comment that they would otherwise laugh at brings them to tears. It's not them being irrational, unpredictable, or inconsistent. It's them experiencing something internally that I promise you, if us men were supposed to go through every month, the tantrums you would throw would probably set the world on fire. So yeah, try to be aware of the fact that that's happening and is a difficult thing to experience, not only from the physical point of view, which frankly I cannot imagine, but also from the mental and emotional point of view, which frankly I also cannot imagine. Alright, that's quite a way to end it. Yeah, I just wanted to make this video to remember what my thoughts on this were at this still very young age. If nothing more, I hope I made you think and reflect on your own situation and relationships, and perhaps you came to some conclusions of your own during what will probably end up being my longest video yet. Bye.